right, hi everybody. So my name's Daugherty. I'm a value and impact consultant at Big Valley Marketing, and I am delighted to be hosting this panel, Beyond Visibility, the New Answer Engine Era. So over the last decade, communications teams have focused heavily on visibility, share of voice, reach, impressions, but we know the environment is changing. As search evolves into search engines, AI systems are increasingly synthesizing and interpreting information about companies, including financial and corporate narratives. This means visibility alone is no longer success. If an AI model cites your organization, but misstates your pricing, earnings outlook, or value proposition, high exposure can quickly become high risk. So the challenge is shifting. It's no longer just about appearing in media or search results. It's about how AI systems interpret, structure, and repeat your narrative. So today we'll explore how communicators can audit AI systems for visibility and accuracy, how prompting can help extract structured intelligence from these models, and how signals from AI environments may strengthen financial messaging, earnings, communication, and investor trust. And we'll also talk about measurement, so how this moves us beyond traditional dashboards and towards signals that actually reflect narrative integrity and strategic intent. So I'm delighted to be joined by two people who are already thinking deeply about this shift. So first we have Devon Bottomley, who leads data and analytics capabilities at Prosek Partners. She connects the dots between research, reputation, and communication strategy, helping companies and executives use data-driven insights to strengthen positioning and measure impact. Her experience spans financial communications, healthcare, nonprofit, and technology, with previous roles at both Ketchum and Edelman. And Siqi Jiang, who works at the intersection of technology, content, and data at Codeword. She is known for building measurement frameworks that move beyond reporting to action, helping leading technology brands turn complex data into predictive intelligence and practical decision-making. Her work is especially focused on bringing rigor and clarity to how brands measure visibility, accuracy, and performance in AI-driven environments. Thank you both for being here. So Devon, we're going to start with you. So for years, communications teams have optimized for visibility, but in this answer engine environment, that no longer seems sufficient, as we know. So what does success actually look like now, and how should we be thinking about quality in this LLM era?
Well, I actually think it's really interesting because it feels like we've gone on this journey, right? So for so many of us, especially when it comes to measurement, we've talked to our clients about transitioning from quantity to quality, right? No longer paying attention or putting as much emphasis on impressions or the number of hits or the number of press releases you're putting out, and focusing more so on your prominence in a story or the message pull-through or the spokespeople you're getting quoted, right? The sentiment that you're generating. And now I think it's a little bit of a combination of the two, right? Mm-hmm. It's about intentional visibility, right? So you're not trying to put as much out there as you can, but you're trying to put the right information on the right channels that are going to get picked up by LLMs. And I think this goes back to what we've heard from Rob and from Daryl and the rest of the speakers today. It comes down to accuracy and consistent accuracy. So you want to think about what you're saying on your company website. You want to think about the articles that you're landing in particular publications, so thinking about the reach that they have to maximize your visibility in those LLMs, and you want to think about the positivity of those stories, right? And then lastly, you really want to make sure that this message is consistent across the board. Otherwise, you're going to get hallucinations. For example, I was talking to a CEO the other day, and she's like, it keeps showing up that I've attended this conference. I've never attended this conference. And I was saying to her, you know, you need to make sure that when you are being quoted, when you're talking about the events you're attending and the things that you're standing for, that same message is coming through. Otherwise, mistakes like that, inaccuracies are going to continue to come up.
Amazing, thank you. Do you want to add?
Yeah, I do want to quickly add, I totally agree. Accuracy is the key foundation here for all brands in the AI search. If the citation is misrepresenting your brand, your positioning, high exposure with wrong information is even worse than low exposure, right? So I do think right now, branding AI search, the success is really meaning about visible, cited, and accuracy. And they're really winning at accurate brand perception. And how we approach that and how we measure that is a really thoughtful process for everyone here and all the marketers. how we're gonna do it, how we're gonna measure brand perception in the AI search era. So.
Amazing, thank you both. So Siqi, we'll start with you for this one. So if communicators want to understand how AI systems are currently interpreting their brand or company, how can they audit that today? What does a rigorous workflow or process look like in practice?
Yeah, I really like this one because all my teams and my clients come to me like, hey, I'm doing this AI visibility project. What do I do? What should I ask AI? And I'm like, wait. Before AI search, let's figure out some key questions in our human real world. Like, what's your target audience persona? What's the narrative that you want your brand to be associated with? What's the objective of the entire AI visibility project? What's the key decision that you want to make based on the AI search data, right? You need to have all of those information handy, and then start the whole AI visibility project, because all of that information will influence how you design your prompts. And how you design your prompts will lead to the data quality you will get in the final report or final measurement. Because bad prompts is garbage data, is what I believe in. And then after you figure out all of that, I have 3 steps. First one, prompt design, and I call it purposeful prompting. Like, every brand should do it. The second one, very simple, find your platform, the vendor, and run the data and wait. And then when you get the data, you analyze it. Sounds simple, but there's so many nuances to it. And I think first and foremost, the most important part, prompting, like purposeful prompting. And I will break it down to 2 steps as well. Like, you need to figure out what the narrative, what the target persona is that you want to mimic your target audience is asking AI around your brand. And then you need to kind of break it down to different types of prompts, like what Daryl mentioned, like you need to have intent, and it's branded, it's unbranded, it's comparison. For unbranded, it's like awareness prompts, right? For example, like we don't want to ask AI about very generic like questions like, oh, I want to buy a sneaker, Nike or Adidas. We want to have like audience persona and narrative into it. Like, for example, I am a college student and I have a budget under $100 and I need to buy a sneaker for my father. That kind of bring persona and narrative into our prompts will bring better data quality in the later on analysis. And then, like after designing all the prompts, you run it and you get the data analysis later on based on the high quality data. And I won't make a speech about like how we actually measure all of those metrics, but what I want to say is you need to have a purpose of each types of prompts, and that will guide your analysis later on. Sheriff model or like citation, sentiment, brand perception, brand position, it will all based on how you design your prompts and what the objectives of this AI like visibility project.
Amazing and very rigorous. Thank you for that. Devon, do you want to add anything to that?
No, she got it all.
Okay, awesome. So Devon, we'll go back to you. So can communicators use AI signals to actually become an early warning system for reputation or investor perception? And can they also use them to strengthen financial messaging, whether that's earnings, communications, market credibility, or anticipating narrative momentum?
110%. So we talk about, at Prosek Partners, we talk about the digital blink, which is just a play on Malcolm Gladwell's book, Blink. Essentially, you size up a person in a matter of minutes, right, when you have your first impression. Gen AI is now your digital blink. It is your front door. It is the first impression you give to many audiences, consumer and B2B, right? We see more and more investors turning to Gen AI for their first read on a company. I think the other day I read from the Harris poll, 25 or 28%, more than a quarter of investors are foregoing earnings calls altogether just to see what Gen AI has to say after the fact. And more are using Gen AI to summarize earnings transcripts and really understand what is being said. So it puts a lot of importance, once again, on that message consistency and what's coming through and the reputation you are trying to convey for what you're good at. So I think that's all to say. It is a huge influence into what your perception is today. And the thing to take away from all of that is, once again, making sure it translates across your materials, your website, your spokespeople, and your transcripts. They should all be saying the same narrative, and that narrative should be focused and specific.
Do you want to add anything, Siqi?
All the points get hit, yeah.
So you talked about your process that you have for going through. For somebody in this room or watching, trying to operationalize this, what should they be doing in the next 90 days?
I would say, first of all, figure out all the real human problems that I just mentioned, like figure out the persona that your target audience is, figure out the narratives you want your brand to be associated with, figure out what's the key objective of the whole intent of why you are doing this AI search, AI visibility research, and then run the baseline report right now. Like figure out that and design your prompts with intent and run the project so you have your baseline performance, and then you will see okay, there's white space that I can enter because your competitors is being cited by this and this and that, and then you have some ideas around okay where you're standing right now. And then the second part is if you are already running your prompts, your projects, take a closer look at the prompts you were designing, and if there's a way that you can refine and get a better data quality based on the refined prompts. And I would say those two steps are the very critical one. And as what Devon said, the outside of world is also very important, your PR, your paid media presence, your social, AI visibility. It's just a measurement framework or a way that how brand is showing up. But what's more important is outside of AI, how your brand is showing up. Because AI visibility is just an aggregator of how you show up out in the world. And you have to make it the content consistent, accurate, so AI will read you accurate in the search. So I will say those three things are the most important in the 90 days that brands need to take action on.
Okay, and are there any questions that they should be asking analytics partners or agencies right now that you'd recommend?
I would say, first of all, the prompt methodology, right? If I have the prompt bank that other platforms can offer, all the how we design prompts, then with a very rigorous methodology, I think that's great. I do have a lot of clients come to me and ask, oh, I had those 100 prompts got from my other agency, and can you take a look at that, because I don't think the AI answers is really representing what I am, and the AI presence is wrong. And when I look at the prompts, it's really bad. It's very generic questions. So I would say figuring out the prompts is the most important part.
Okay, and Devon, what would you say for how folks should operationalize this sort of immediately?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I loved when Siqi said measurement framework, because I don't necessarily think it's changing the game. I don't think it's changing the best practices we know. It's changing the inputs to that, right? So we need to start with who's our goal, who's our target audience, and what ladders up into that, right? So even when we're thinking about even when I think about what questions my clients are asking me right now, or ones that I wish they asked me, it's where are my audiences operating and getting information right now and throughout their day, right? So when we're thinking, once again, just going back to the B2B world for a second, retail investors, they turn to Reddit. Your B2B audiences, they're first and foremost looking at LinkedIn. Both of those inform your LLM models, right? So once again, just thinking about how you're showing up across those channels, and then structuring that measurement framework to get your communications where you need them to be to reach those target audiences and move the needle. That is what's going to help drive that consistency at the end of the day and that intentional visibility.
I do want to quickly add to that. I do have a really quick real-world example. I won't name the brand, but I do have a client, a data center client. And surprisingly, we all know, okay, Reddit, LinkedIn, YouTube, the top, the source cited. But when I look at data center, those specific, very niche industry, the top resource is not Reddit. It's educational institution. Very interesting. And when I double click on the most cited website, it's actually like some study from universities, from institutions, from like environment, nonprofit, government. So it's not really about like, I want to get into this AI visibility or AI search era. I need to have a Reddit strategy right away without any like data or baseline performance analysis. No, you have to get into it, ask the right prompt, and get the data, and then you know where you need to show up. It's not all about like, I need to get it to Reddit because of this and that based on certain like data. You need to have your industry niche like insights for yourself. So
The basics still hold true.
yeah.
I love that. Okay. As we move into this new environment, are there traditional metrics that are becoming less useful or new metrics that deserve more attention? Either of you can start with this.
Okay, of course. Like, I coming from a background of like PR, analytics, like measurement for my PR clients, and social influencer, all of that, and share voice, impression. Those are the top like metrics all my clients are asking, like what I'm sending, the share voice in online news media, social, what the engagements are. I don't think we are sunsetting all of those traditional quote unquote metrics. I do think they are still valid in terms of what you want to, competing against your competitors. But I do think having another layer from AI search is gonna be very, very helpful for brands to know where they need to show up so they can gain more like visibility or more positive perception in those traditional metrics. So it's like they're holding hand in hand. It's not like we're prioritizing one over another.
And I'll build on that. I think a lot of us in this room probably wish we could get rid of impressions already. But even Siqi acknowledging like the importance of share of voice, when we focus that in, right, we don't often boil the ocean. We don't say we're measuring everything out there. We say we're looking at the most salient mentions as part of share of voice. We're looking at a target list of publications. We're looking at only positive and neutral sentiment. So we're really focusing our ecosystem once again on what matters. And we do the same, I think, when it comes to new metrics that we are measuring as part of LLMs. When we're thinking about the share of model, right, we're also thinking about what goes into that. We're thinking about different sources that they pull from, right, and how that plays across the board, and also the biases that we talked about beforehand as well. So I think it comes down at the end of the day to accuracy mattering more than ever, and that really being kind of the bellwether of how you're showing up across these tools.
And what I like the most about AI visibility is we get citation data from it, and we know like, okay, we can double click on that and know like if that citation is representing our brand or some misinformation there, that we can correct right away. And we get to see like, okay, those are the top sources, like AI is reading as our third of like sources. Then if my client is lacking of like those media presence, I will let my strategy team know right away, my PR team know right away, and they can adjust their strategy and pitch more like those resources. So our client, like later on, maybe after 1 month or 3 months, they will get a very high visibility score in AI search, and we will see like, okay, the placements that we secured from like in Forbes or Wall Street Journal or Reddit got my client like ranked higher. More visibility. So this is like end to end. It's like a loop system. So yeah.
I like that idea a lot. Okay, I just want to see if anybody has any questions for our panelists. Yes.
Hi, I thought the financial industry data that you shared. Hold on a second, wait for Mike so that the Google attendees can hear you as well. Thank you.
Hi, Devon. I thought the financial industry information you shared was super insightful. One problem my organization is facing is that we're struggling to get positive coverage related to earnings content. So how are you seeing clients kind of address that, knowing that Gen AI is playing such a huge role in shaping perception of earnings?
That is such a good question. And it's most of earnings coverage is very factual. It's very neutral, right? It's kind of dull. And so it is kind of creating that narrative around earnings, right? So when we're working with our clients these days, we're focusing, what are kind of those positive like indicators that we can get in there, right? So, thinking about growth, right? How can we talk about growth? How can we talk about, increasing capabilities in certain ways? How can we get a little enthusiasm and excitement in there while still maintaining like a balanced tone, right? Because that's what those tools are going to be picking up more is kind of what are those like small indicators of tone and sentiment over time that can continue to kind of drive forward that more positive sentiment. And it's small and it's very nuanced, I will say that as well, and it depends on who you're working with. But at the end of the day, I think the more you can refine that narrative to start bringing through a little bit more of that color context, that will help increase how you show up.
Amazing. Any other questions? Yeah, over here.
Hi. Thank you for this. This is awesome. The point about the Harris poll and the 28% of investors going to Gen AI really resonated with me. I was sharing that around with some colleagues back. I work for a publicly traded company, and you might have just said this, so I'm sorry. There was some just logistics getting the microphone. Yeah. What are some things we can be thinking about with regard to that stat? 28% of investors are now using Gen AI to summarize earning reports instead of sitting through them. For a company that's been doing earnings reports maybe more traditionally, what are some things we should be thinking about now?
Yeah, another great question. So I think that was the biggest surprising stat to me as well. I think it changes the game for a lot of what we do. And it goes back, in my mind, to the company website and to your IR website, as well as your transcript and the people who are vocalizing your earnings, whether it's your CEO or other spokespeople. I think it's incredibly important to have the same message across all of those channels. And then also LinkedIn. LinkedIn is more and more a vector to talk about earnings. I've had an increasing number of clients start putting their earnings on a regular basis on LinkedIn. But of course, once you start, you can't really stop because then people will ask why. But essentially, it's, once again, getting that consistent message across. That'll make sure it's coming through with minimal risk of hallucinations. But also, even though that's happening, the Harris poll research also cited 75% are still going to company content, company-owned channels first and foremost. So that's why I say that that's really important first and foremost. The last thing I'll say, just because I touched on LinkedIn too, LinkedIn also just put out new research that talked about how specific types of content on LinkedIn are getting cited, and newsletters are more important than ever, because they're getting cited more consistently based off of kind of the cadence and also kind of the ownability there as well. Credibility, yeah.
Amazing. Okay, we probably have time for one more question. Yes, over here. Oh, just wait for a mic. Just over here. Thanks, Julie.
Julie's getting her stuff.
I know, I was going to say that.
Hi. So I really like your point about the importance of having everything from spokespeople to website to media coverage all being in alignment, and consistency there being really important. One of the things at my company that we have been having a lot of conversations about is the impact of mis and disinformation on social media, just because there's a limited amount that we as an organization can do to impact what people are saying on things like Reddit and some other corners of the internet. As far as how that impacts AI results and things like that, is there, like, what advice would you give on that?
Another great question. I think so it's being diligent about how you're showing up still. So I think it goes back to your monitoring systems as well. So how are you monitoring across both earned and social, understanding kind of the risk factors there. So if a negative story or a story that does not produce accurate information about your brand, your company, your firm, if that pops up, like, what is the followership of that? Like, is it going viral? Is there high engagement? If it's social, if it's earned, like, do you need to reach out to that publication? Is it high reach? Kind of still understanding the ecosystem that you're operating in and keeping a steady pulse on that then can help course correct in advance. Of course, there are some situations where it snowballs very quickly. But I will say more often than not, for our clients that we're finding do come into those situations where they're like, we're showing up in an LLM in a way we don't want to be, and part of that is due to misinformation that's out there. It's correctable. Or in some way, you can kind of put out proactive content that then minimizes that.
I will just quickly add to that, totally aligned. And I do think like having a very rounded like audit about the brand and about the like what the negative topic really is, and will help a lot to shape like how you pitch or how you proactively like reach out to those media and then correct the information that is wrong. And then like again having like maybe AI visibility project ongoing basis, and you will see, okay, from this month we saw some like misinformation there, but after like certain PR effort, whatnot, 3 months later we don't have that problem anymore. So having like AI visibility project going on will help you to monitor like if your brand perception and accuracy and everything else. So
Amazing. Thank you for the questions. A round of applause for our panelists.